What's going on, YouTube? Today I'm here in Atlanta at Oakland Cemetery, and we're going to look for the grave of Margaret Mitchell. And before we do, I would like to thank you for tuning in to People of the Past. If this is your first time, welcome. If not, welcome back. Please consider hitting that like button, share, comment, and well, let's go try to find her. So yeah, Margaret Mitchell was born and here in Atlanta on November the 8th, 1900, and she was a journalist and an author. However, she would only write one real novel that would be published here in her time on Earth, and that would be her novel that turned into a box office hit, which is Gone with the Wind. Now she won 2 awards for that novel, one being the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction in 1937. And now Miss Mitchell was a lifelong resident of Georgia, and her family was very wealthy. She spent her early childhood near downtown Atlanta, and when she was 3 years old, an accident happened where her dress got caught on the fireplace, on the little iron gates of the fireplace. And it caught her dress on fire, just the hem. Although she wasn't seriously harmed by it, her mom, fearing that it would happen again, started dressing her in her brother's pants. Now, seeing that she was the only girl, and she wanted to play, her brother said if she wanted to play with him, then her name's going to be Jimmy. So since she didn't have no sisters to play with, that was her name till she was 14, was Jimmy. Now in her time, children was seen and not heard, so she listened a lot, especially to Confederate veterans. And she would hear the gritty details of the Civil War. Later, when she was around 10 years old, is when she first found out that the South had lost, and that it was a violent shock to learn that General Lee had been defeated. And growing up, her mother would take her on trips of old plantations, and she would hear stories from older relatives about the Civil War. And on summer vacation, she would actually stay with kin who lived on the plantation. She was an avid reader, and she would read William Shakespeare and Charles Dickens. One author, though, that had a major impact on her was Thomas Dixon. And he would tell stories of how the South was being victimized by the North. And, hold on, we'll get back to Miss Mitchell in a minute. I just ran across Maynard Jackson. He was Atlanta's first black mayor. His honor, courage, and vision created a new Atlanta. First African-American mayor of Atlanta. March 23rd, 1938 to June 23rd, 2003. And the Atlanta airport is named after him and Hartsville, I'm sorry, which was another mayor. His determination opened the doors of equal opportunity to everyone. There is no change, no destiny, no fate can circumvent or hinder or control the firm resolve of a determined soul. A servant devoted to his family and friends and to the politics and inclusion for all Londoners. And he was so he was the mayor when the Atlanta child murders were going on. That has a story all in itself. But that's pretty neat. You never know what you, when you're doing one story on somebody else and then you run into another story. That's pretty neat. Yeah. So Menard Jackson. All right. So anyway, let's get back to looking for Miss Mitchell. So like I said, she was an avid reader, but her favorite author was Thomas Dixon, and he would tell the stories of how the South was victimized and stuff, how the North was just taken over and everything. So when a young Mitchell first started writing, she would tell stories about animals and fairy tales, and then she moved on to adventure stories. Her story, now we're going to fast forward a few years when she was in school at Washington Seminary, where she was studying to become a psychiatrist. However, that did not come to come to fruition because of her mother had caught in the pandemic flu of 1918. And if you don't know, we just got through with COVID, but the flu of 1918 was called the Spanish flu, and it killed like over 50 million people worldwide. So on January 25th, 1919, her mother, Maybelle, she died of the Spanish flu. And so she returned home from college to be at her mom's death, before mom's burial and everything, and she just never went back. In September of 1922, she married, I think his name is Vernon Upshaw, but due to his violent temper and everything, they divorced in 1924. And on July the 4th of 1925, she married John Marsh, which just so happened to be the best man at her Upshaw's wedding, the first man she married. Now in May of 1926, she left her job at Atlanta Journal, and while at home started writing Gone with the Wind. And after a few rewrites and editing, in 1936 it was finally published. One of the rewrites was to rename Pansy O'Hara to Scarlett O'Hara. Within a month of the novel's release, Margaret sold the rights to motion picture director David Selznick for $50,000. The highest amount ever paid for a novel at that time. Like I said, it became a box office hit at the 1940 Academy Awards. It won 8 of the 13 Oscars it was nominated for. Now Selznick, you know, he offered to give her the award that he got for best movie, but she declined it. But since the movie did so well, she did accept a bonus payment of $50,000 as a gesture of appreciation. Now, although she was a celebrity, she never liked the spotlight, and for many years after Gone with the Wind, she said her intentions was never to ever write again due to the disruption the book made in her life. Now, on August 11th, 1949, while crossing Peachtree Street with her husband to see a movie, Canterbury Tale, she was hit by an off-duty, speeding, and intoxicated taxi driver, and she died 5 days later. And here she is, right here. Margaret Mitchell Marsh, born in Atlanta, Georgia, November the 8th, 1900, died in Atlanta, Georgia, August 16th, 1949. And that is her husband, John Robert Marsh. And right here behind her is her mom, Maybelle Stevens Mitchell, beloved wife of Eugene Mitchell, January 13th, 1872 to January 25th, 1919. And this right here is her father, Eugene Mitchell, born in Atlanta, October 13th, 66, and died Atlanta, Georgia, June 17th, 1944. So he actually he lived probably, what, about 30 years, something like that, after his wife. Well, there you have it. I'd like to thank y'all for tuning in to People of the Past. Like I said, please consider subscribing, liking, sharing, leaving a comment, and we'll see you back down the road on the next People of the Past.